So Vanessa, Volvo cars, you're looking after sustainability issues there. Now, electrification is obviously one component of it. Uh, is that the principal driver that you're using for sustainability? How would you describe the efforts of sustainability at Volvo?
I mean, we know the future is electric, right? And I was really happy to hear yesterday Emma from the Clean Carbon Committee, who was saying that one of the big challenges is to make all surface transport or to address that, right?
Yeah.
And electrifying that is so important, right? So for sure, electrifying our fleet is super important for us. But then, of course, we need to look beyond that. So we're working, of course, with the materials in the cars, and then also how our impact on nature and biodiversity also is impacted, and how we can work with that also in a circular model that helps to build the business really well.
So I think you won't get too many challenges to the point about electrification. The diehards advocating hydrogen in passenger cars, I think, are mostly restricted to Japan and Korea these days. That was a wrong turn, perhaps the car industry took. I can remember 20 years ago driving a Daimler new energy car, car they called it, around Berlin, powered by hydrogen. It turned out to be the absolute wrong application of hydrogen, right? Putting them in a very competitive environment like the passenger cars with requiring massive refueling, as opposed to thinking about it as a specialized champagne of fuels for hard-to-abate sectors or something, which is really the utilization we're seeing for that fuel. Electrification is indeed the clear front runner or winner in clean transportation. But there's still another issue, though, I do want to press you on a little bit, and that is, Volvo, which has a long and proud history of safety. My family's owned multiple Volvos, and they're usually built like a tank, was the joke, and in a good way. We wanted that, and so whenever young people in my family used to get cars, we'd get Volvos because parents felt much safer with their kids in a Volvo than in some other lightweighted car. But this does pose a sustainability challenge. If you make a lot of big, heavy SUVs, The Economist ran a cover story a few months ago that got a lot of attention about America's much heavier cars and the trend towards heavier vehicles generally. It's not about electrification, about that general trend. They're more dangerous on the roads, but also they have a heavier environmental footprint. What are you doing to lightweight these vehicles and also maybe to right size them over time? Because there is an environmental and sustainability dimension to having just going electric doesn't solve the problem if you're also consuming a lot more materials in the making of it and in the issues in the use of the vehicle as well.
For sure. And I think what we can see, with every electric car that we produce, we also create a carbon footprint report. And so if you look at our biggest SUV, actually the electric now, the EX90, that one, despite having a battery in it that accounts for 17% of the carbon footprint, it actually has a lower carbon footprint over the life cycle than any of the other comparable cars that we have. So the predecessor being, for example, the XC90.
Help us understand what explains that.
So that means that, the work that we've done over the life cycle, driving the electric car, that really reduces the carbon impact. Of course, then working with the materials is the big piece that we need to do beyond that. So we're really working to get more recycled materials in there to help to further reduce the footprint. And to your question about weight, that is a question all the time. So, for example, last week we introduced our new model, the ES90, which is the next electric model. So now we have 6 electric models available. And that one also, with the work that we've been able to do with the battery, we have been able to reduce the weight significantly as well. Okay. So it is a question top of mind, and you're right. And changing the technology that we're working comes with lots of new problems that we're trying to address too.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad you're working on that. Now, to a company whose products don't have the problem of being excessively large and, but ginormous, Andrew, I was just in LA, so I got to see a lot of your products on the streets. Too many of them, in fact. They're very popular, littering up the streets. You got to work on that. That's always a constant complaint down at, Santa Monica and Venice and so on. But nevertheless, micromobility, you guys are pioneers. Tell us, how far have you gotten beyond sort of a cool niche product? How much further can we go? What do you need for this to become a much bigger part of the solution?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think just the fact that we're invited to this stage among automakers to be able to have this conversation around a net zero commute, I think is a testament to how far we've come in the last 5 or 8 years since we started the company. So I don't think we would have been invited to the stage to have a conversation 8 years ago. And I think what we've done is been able to scale in enough markets and enough growth that people start to see shared micromobility as a service that they can depend on. We're now providing more than 6 trips every second around the globe, and we've delivered over 1 billion kilometers of trips. So we've reached a scale where people recognize it. You go to LA, you see it. You come here in London, you certainly see it. And I think that's a testament to where we've come as a business. In fact, 82% of all Gen Z Londoners have used Lime or another shared service as a commute option. So we've reached that point where it's become a go-to that people can depend on. And so, what we're focused on is scaling the business around globally. And to your question around how can we make it even more ubiquitous and more available, we work very closely with the cities that we operate in to help provide them with important data, for example, to help provide information of where they could make infrastructure improvements, where they could have protected bike lanes, how we could have parking corrals so we can tidy up parking so that people can depend on the parking, have it within 200 meters, 400 meters of every destination that they want to go to, but also make it in a way that's safe and convenient for folks within cities.
Now, I've seen some data suggesting that you've been able to reduce your carbon intensity by 60% or so since 2019. How did you do that? What can you give us some clues on what you did?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty resolute focus on decarbonization throughout the business. We started out with 100% renewable energy for all of our warehouses and charging the entire fleet globally. So all those batteries are charged with renewable energy. That's the easy stuff. And then we've gone much deeper around supply chain, looking at decarbonizing our materials, looking at things like low carbon aluminum for the battery housing, for example. We've also significantly improved lifespan and repair and reuse of the vehicles. So I was actually just at our North London warehouse yesterday, where hundreds of vehicles are being fixed and then redeployed daily. That type of work has been instrumental to the decarbonization path that we're on with our net zero.
I want to hear more about this because I did see a study from MIT that talked about the short lives of the equipment, that 2 to 3 years, constant replacement, and we actually take account of the materials involved in building them, actually contributing to a negative dimension of sustainability. But it sounds like you've been working on this issue. Is that right?
Yeah, I think anytime you see a study like that, they're often many, many years in the past.
Retrospective, academic studies.
Yeah,
well, give us the update.
Exactly. We're at a point where in Europe, for example, the lifespan of the vehicle is over 40,000 kilometers over 8 years. That has been a big improvement. The things that we've done is make the vehicle more modular, so parts can be replaced, which makes sense. Automakers do it. It's just something that early on in the industry, we just didn't have that capacity. We built our own engineering team to be able to do that. And so that's the type of stuff that is instrumental to both good sustainability impact, but also good financial impact as well. It's good for the business as well, and has helped allow us to turn free cash flow and become a more enduring business as a result. If we weren't able to do that and become a sustainable business from a financial perspective, we wouldn't have the carbon and environmental impact that we want to have long term.
Right.
Can
so
I
Andrew,
actually pick up on something you said, Andrew, earlier? Like you were talking about the importance of working together with cities, right? And I think that is something that we really need to emphasize, right? And coming back to what Emma was saying previously, like working with transport, if we're going to do that, it's for sure it's us as the equipment providers, the OEMs, right? We've got to make these investments, up our supply chain with the work that we're doing, making sure that we decarbonize. But we have to do that in partnership with the cities, with the governments, and with the people, the consumers themselves who are using our products, right? Because we need to have the infrastructure in place. We need to have the incentives to help push in the right direction, right? So I really want to emphasize that point that you brought up there.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. And we've been very happy with how cities have taken, for example, data that we provide to them, aggregated across the fleet, and they make those improvements. So, for example, from Seattle to Paris, transportation officials have taken data and seen where people ride to and from, where they want parking, where they want access to vehicles, where they want safe bike lanes, et cetera. You can even see in the data where people will take a route and then they'll do this weird zig and a zag. And there's a reason for that. It's because they're finding it more convenient or safer. And we can provide that to cities and say, hey, look, this is an opportunity to make make the ride more safe and make it more accessible for folks to actually have that net zero commute that we're hoping people to have.
That's
And
great.
here we see the challenge with, like, in Europe, right? 57% of the charging points are concentrated in, Germany, Netherlands, and France, where we also see the highest concentration of electric vehicle sales for us as well. And the incentives for the infrastructure build out are only in 5 countries also. So we see that sort of it hinders the development. So it's great to hear that you can use the data to push that.
This enhances
the transition.
The smart cities and smart intelligent transport of the future. Andrew, you made the comment that you're wedged in between 2 car makers. Little did you know the catalytic effect of your company and others like yours would actually mobilize our friend on the right from Volkswagen, not only to be selling cars or electrifying merely, but actually to embrace multimodal technologies, right? And so, Jonas, I want to ask you, Volkswagen, which people associate with, fun cars that are fun to drive and so on, that you're actually moving into mobility services in a big way. Tell us about why that makes sense. What are you doing? Update us.
Well, that's a great question, and I think it picks up both the points from Andrew and also from Vanessa, because I think we have to offer the consumer a seamless product, a seamless experience. Because it's my first time in London, and I'm quite positively surprised. Maybe a Londoner would say it otherwise. But you come to Heathrow, you can easily check in the Heathrow Express, you can easily check in the Underground, and you can easily check in on a Lime. And I think this is something where we, as a car maker, mobility provider, have also have to be present in the next years. Because also a question from Rebecca here regarding the infrastructure. I think the infrastructure isn't that critical right now. I think we have to get the people in our ecosystem. We have to get them in the car and let them drive. I think when we get the people in an electric vehicle or even on a scooter or a micromobility bike, they are convinced that it's working, it's sustainable, and it has some sort of user experience to it. So I think that is something. And we as a group, as a Volkswagen Group, we have so many brands and subsidiary companies where we can really try to build an ecosystem where you can lease a bike, you can rent or lease a car, but you can also, we have several ride pooling. Moja, our ride pooling company, is in place in Hamburg and Munich. We can easily get mobility. I think this is something that makes us strong, and that really it's going to help the net zero commute, and also, as Vanessa said, like really partnering, and we can't do it alone.
Andrew, what do you think about this guy busting into your lane? Don't you want him to stay?
As long as it's not in the bike lane, no.
Well,
as long as it's not the vehicle in the bike lane, right?
You really want car companies doing all these other things?
People
are they going to be any good at it?
That's a good question. I mean, they do a lot of things very well. I think the question is, and we are asked this all the time, are more people riding in ways that are lower carbon? And that's what we're after. And we don't view it as an arbitrage of people either going to take one service or another. People ask us about that with private scooters or bikes. We're totally supportive of private scooters and bikes. The more people that are in bike lanes, the more people that are out riding on 2 wheels, the safer people feel, the more cities will invest in the infrastructure, and the tide rises. So if more want to enter the market, we're all for it. I think the exciting thing is that you're seeing the conversation, you're seeing this stuff being baked into the apps when you arrive on Google and you want to get from point A to point B. Again, I was at the warehouse yesterday. It was a 32-minute Uber ride, and it was a 32-minute e-bike ride. And I took the e-bike ride because it's a lot more fun. I've spent too much time in steel cages the last few weeks. So, I think we view it as the opportunity for everyone to be seeing a better urban future. And if you think about the future of cities, which are going to be taking more and more people as population grows, we know that, and they have the opportunity to be the most sustainable place for people to live because you can provide services in a much more efficient way.
Sure.
The opportunity of decarring these urban environments is enormous. Think about how much space is taken from cars that sit idle 96, 97% of their lives. That parking garage, for example, could be turned into housing so people can live closer to where they work or live closer to the school where their kids go, or the parking that's along the side of streets, if it's taken away for protected bike lanes or outside eateries, that's good for local commerce, that's good for safety. So we see the future of the urban environment as being, very much improved by having 2 wheels versus 4, and
it's a common mission.
Yeah.
So nobody wants to step in the place of anyone else. I think that we have all the same mission. Make mobility accessible, easy, affordable, and also net zero.
And I think adding the complementarity to it, right? Like for different things you're doing, different needs you need different types of mobility, right? So let's make sure that we can make that accessible and decarbonize that, right? Because ultimately for the consumer, that's where it's the best. It's a better driving experience to be driving electric. It's more efficient. It's quieter, less obviously pollution also, and by the way, less carbon. So
and fun.
We have a couple of questions from the floor, for which I thank you, and we'll get the lights up and get audience questions. But already on Slido, a couple of them are for you about Lime, Andrew. The people are loving Lime. Someone took it here, your technology, but they're asking about community-based charging as well. Why not do what City Bike does? That is, give a reward for moving units from fallow areas to hotspots, or hotspots to fallow areas. So there are a couple of questions about sort of your business model.
Yeah, we do have, it's a great question. We do have programs where we incentivize riders in some markets and some locations to either be doing things like parking or rebalancing, if you will. We have also, in some markets, we're piloting this in Tel Aviv and a few other
Get
markets.
the lights up, please. Yeah.
Where we are actually incentivizing riders to help swap batteries, where they might take a battery from a vehicle, park the vehicle, and then swap it at a local swap station that might be at a laundromat or might be at a convenience store.
What do these early pilots show? Do they work?
Yeah, they do, and they reduce carbon as well.
Right.
So I think it's encouraging.
So incentives.
Yeah, incentives for sure.
Yeah, in China, they've experimented with penalties. You know, they have a social credit scoring system where Big Brother watches you.
Yeah.
If you park your scooter in the wrong place or in a disapproved areas, you get a negative on your social credit score. So be careful what you wish for. There you go. All right, let's start here, and then we'll come over to that side. Do we have a few more questions we'll come to? But go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to pick up on something that Andrew mentioned about the road planning and so forth. Inevitably, there is sometimes you have to choose.
Hold your mic closer to your mouth.
Sorry, you have to choose between space in a city, between road network or a bike lane or a tram lane and so forth. How do you see that conflict or dilemma being solved, and looking at the idea of lobbying actions?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think that we certainly think that the two-wheel space is obviously typically much smaller than the four-wheel space in urban environments. You know, across the total number of trips that we've done since we started the business, we've prevented 220 million car trips from the mode shift perspective. So people that would have otherwise taken a personal car, Uber, Lyft, ride hail, taxi. And so we think that the reduction of those trips helps solidify or provide a justification for making the investment in a space for people to bike or scoot safely. There is absolutely a role for four-wheel vehicles. I mean, you know, you have kids and you're in a northern environment that has snow. It's pretty hard to do that on two wheels year round. It's doable, but it can be hard. It can be challenging. So we really view it as being part of an ecosystem of making the commute more friendly. And if we can get more cars off the road because people are, you know, in that bike lane, we're all for it. And we want to provide cities with the rationale, right? They're not going to build the infrastructure if they don't think people are going to use it. I used to work in government, totally understand that city officials have a trade-off to make, right? They want to do right by their constituents. They want to know that if they're going to make investments or even space allocation, to your question, that it's going to be well justified. And we're hoping that the service allows us to do that.
A question here?
Chloe Karova. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. And my question is simply, in the United States, we're in a political economy. We all know that. So what is the plan for continuing progress and making investment in this electric vehicle infrastructure? I mean, we keep saying the future is electric, but are consumers really ready for it? Because our government, the United States, obviously, it seems like we're trying to turn back the hands of time, and we're trying to create all of these impediments to infrastructure for example, electric vehicle charging.
Sure.
The second thing is consumers. I was in California, which has been doing EVs for a long time, and I still get range anxiety because it's very difficult to find charging stations. So I don't know. I guess my question is really, what are the plans given all these obstacles from the government, and also just in terms of consumer education? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, who wants to jump in?
Yeah, well, great question. Thank you. I think from at least from a European perspective, as Vanessa mentioned before, I think the charging infrastructure in Germany, France, and well, probably Western Europe is quite good. So I drive electric since 6 years now, and I don't want to drive anything else. And that's what I said before. If you get the people in the car, and they lose anxiety about what's going to happen, how's the range, how's the mileage. I think that's going to work out, because like in 90% of the trips you do, you don't have a problem. And I think it's more about getting the right products in the market, because at some point you have to get the people in the car and you have the right products. And currently battery electric vehicles are still quite expensive. And we as a group, Volkswagen, so people's car, we are really maybe a little behind, but we have to get more affordable cars. And I think that is something, if we have more affordable cars, bigger competition, so that the consumer finds something of his interest. Do I need a range of 100 kilometers or 400? Because think about yourself, like how many trips do you do more than 100 kilometers a day? Is this so often? So I think that from my perspective works quite well. We have to get the people in the car, and we have to be more affordable.
I think we need to look at the positive examples as well, right? Like you mentioned California, right? I think the Illinois as well, New York, like they're doing some great things, but you need to have that partnership between the companies like us working on getting the right products available, helping consumers understand, but also getting that push and the support from the governments, right? With the infrastructure in place, with the incentives helping out. And I mean, we see the direct correlation, right? As soon as the incentives disappear, then the sales reduce, because people need that little push, because it is something new, right? And it is something to get used to, driving an electric car. That
we have
takes
a microphone there with the
Hi.
someone, please.
Isabel Devana from the Carbon Trust. Just a quick question for the car manufacturers. Do you see this as an advantage as well in terms of peeling off potential customers that normally would buy one car makers, and start to buy yours? So somebody that buys Toyota is going to start to buy Volvo because of your sustainability strategy. I mean, do you translate that in your comms?
I think certainly we see, our customers, the Volvo customers, love us because we are the sustainable, the safe car, right? So certainly we have an opportunity there, and we are trying to build on that, right? But it still is a transition of the whole automotive industry and requires that whole ecosystem to be working together.
We're getting a microphone to the far end of the room. My apologies for ignoring you, because I'm seated facing my panel, but we do recognize you. Please.
Hi there, I'm Claire Gallen from Everflow Utilities, and I'm also a keen cyclist. So my question is for Lime. I recently tried out one of your Lime bikes, which was super fun, thank you. But I was a little bit concerned about the safety aspect. There's no helmets supplied. Everybody seems to be zooming around London with no helmets on, which is like counter to what the UK government has been campaigning on for ages, and cycling organisations as well. The bikes are very heavy, they're very fast, powerful. So why have you not supplied helmets, and what are you doing about the safety aspect?
Sure. A question that's heard often. What's your answer?
I have my helmet here. I use my helmet from the trip to the warehouse down. I am a huge advocate for using a helmet.
Bring your own. That's your answer.
Yeah, bring your own. I think we have found there's plenty of studies that show that the cities that have required helmets radically suppress ridership. And so there's a really big question of what do you do about that, and what is the right policy design for that? So tomorrow we'll be doing in London here a commute club where we'll be giving out helmets. We strongly encourage riders in the onboarding to wear helmets. I rode here and I saw other folks wearing a helmet as well. And, I think it's one of those things that when you start to use it regularly, you attach it to your bag, you invest in one of the collapsible helmets as well. 99.99% of all of our rides are completed incident-free. We want to increase that number infinitely. So we just want to keep improving safety, and part of it also is more ridership, protected bike lanes, other things that we can do as we have folks investing in the service.
Is there no possibility of including helmets? Is it a sanitary question, or what's the issue there with the providing helmets?
Yeah, I think it's a user question. I mean, most people don't want to use someone else's helmet. And so, frankly, it just hasn't been something that's had a large amount of uptick.
Yeah. Okay, there's a question there.
Hello, good afternoon. Faith Seguir from Mackenzie Investments, a Canadian asset manager. My colleague was on a panel a couple of days ago, so yay, Canada. I'm an early adopter of electric cars. Obviously, I'm a sustainability practitioner. Charging is a massive pain point. I'd like to understand from Volkswagen and Volvo, what are you doing to build the charging infrastructure, not just in Europe, but globally?
Should take it first.
Sure.
Well, I think we are partnering because we can't do it alone. We need government support. Well, in Europe we have ELI, our charging network, just 30% more charging points since last year, 850,000 in the US. We are partnering with Electrify America. And in China as well with CAM. I think that that is something we have on the agenda, and we do what we can to help to build infrastructure. We can't do it alone. We need also other partners, but we have it clearly on our mission and in our strategy to help build more infrastructure for charging.
I think just building on what you said, that what we control even and more is also how quickly we can get the charging to happen, right? So really making sure that we're investing in upgrading the batteries and things like that to make sure that the charging goes fast. But ultimately, it comes back to the ecosystem, right? And the consumers have a part to play in that as well, exactly like you're saying. More usage, more demand will help the local governments and the regional governments also understand the need for the infrastructure and help to build that out, right? So we all have a part to play to bring it together.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm Rachel Coburn-Walden. I'm former global head of human rights at Unilever. Lots of conversations about sustainability, not so many about responsibility. And we know that obviously a lot of the components of electric cars are manufactured in really poor working conditions. We know that where they come from are areas of high risk. So although you're saying the future is electric, what are you doing to actually look at how the components that go into the batteries are actually mined, manufactured, and thinking about the working conditions of those people?
Well, actually, what we're doing now, both with our EX90, which we launched last year, and the ES90 that we launched just last week, we have a battery passport included in that, in those cars. And the battery passport is pretty fantastic. It's a little QR code, and it's kind of what it sounds like. It's a passport that comes in the car that tells you about the history of the battery in that car. So built on blockchain technology, we can follow important minerals that are part of the battery all the way back to the mine. And you can go in, you can scan that QR code as the owner of that car, and you can see that. You can also find other information about your battery there, the health of the battery, what status it's at, all kinds of good things there. But I think, we take this question extremely seriously, right? Especially as we know, we're increasing the battery electric vehicles, and that does have a big impact. But we want it to be as good as we can make it throughout our supply chain upstream. So I think the battery passport is a huge step forward. It's a legislation that's coming in 2027. We're going ahead of that to prove that we can do it, to show that this is really something we believe in.
What are you doing on the supply chain question?
Well, we have a whole department in sustainable procurement, looking into the value chain, giving up ratings for our suppliers, so sustainability ratings that we can be as sure as we can be that there are no harm in our value chain. And also, if there is an incident, we look quite quickly in it. But it's deep in our strategy, also in our sustainability strategy, to only source responsible.
Any final question in the back row? We have just 1 minute left, so quick question, quick answer.
Great, thanks. Hi, I'm Amanda Martin from the Global Impact Coalition. And I just wondered what you're working on for end of life. How do we make sure that actually these vehicles are getting put back into the system in a circularity?
It's for all of you, really.
I can share a quick example. One, first off, we hope to prolong the life within our own repair and reuse practices. When, for example, we have batteries that are no longer
perpetual life. That's your
perpetual life, exactly.
Okay.
And we've used Second Life providers, where even in Brighton, UK, here we've taken individual cells out of battery packs to be able to use them for other consumer electronics. So trying to find ways that if they're no longer able to be used for moving people around, we can actually still have a functional life with those very valuable materials.
Quite easy one for us. We need the resources as well for our own value chain. So circular economy is one of the major projects for us in the next years.
Great. Okay, why don't we leave it there? We're just out of time. Give my panel a nice round of applause. And thank you for all the questions. Thank you.